Skip, skip. But when does this game get good?
Welcome back to the class, everyone. And just like that, we have good value Lightspeed bundles coming once again. And while we will be doing our typical value statement for each of one of the new bundles coming in, comparing and contrasting them against one another, there are a lot of other things that don't necessarily have to do with raw dollar amounts that I think are going to be really important, and they might not be that obvious. So for those of you who are unaware, we do have 6 new Lightspeed bundles coming to the game today. If you're watching this in the first couple of hours, they're probably not live in game yet, so don't freak out if you don't see them, but this is what they will look like. We have the Jawa pack coming for $10, all of them coming in at R3, the Tusken pack all at R5, bringing in that entire faction, a Smuggler, or sorry, a Jabba pack going for $25 that kind of finishes off the rest of his requirements, a Dash Smuggler pack for $20 that will also be giving Outrider, not seen here, the Aphra pack, kind of mimicking the Starkiller pack, bringing in all 4 of the requirement characters at Relic 5 for $50, and last and probably least is going to be the Princess Lightspeed bundle that has Nisa and Princess Leia for a total of $10. So again, I do want to look into the overall numbers of what these packs are offering as far as value goes, but there are some other things that we really need to bring to light to give a fuller picture. So you all know it was going to be coming, but here's the typical spreadsheet that we work off of. And for those of you who haven't seen this before, I'm not going to go into great detail because we've done it about 16 times this year alone. This is basically just showing what it would cost you if you were to go and get all the signal data and the chirotech that these characters would cost you if you were not to get the Lightspeed bundle, and then compare it to the actual ticket price that these are going to cost. So as you would imagine, one of the big winners from this batch that is coming out right now is going to be the Jabba pack, and that should be pretty self-explanatory. And it's not just because he's a galactic legend. In fact, these numbers have nothing to do with the fact that he's a galactic legend, but it has everything to do with the fact that he has 3 requirements that are new enough to require a lot of chirotech, being Boosh, Chrysanthemum, as well as Skiff Lando. And one of the other observations that I want to make that isn't necessarily have to do with the raw numbers here is we've been getting a lot of packs that have had Jabba-esque requirements throughout the year. For those of you who have been playing this for a while, or at least been plugged into Lightspeed bundles for last year, you'll know that we got a 3PO bundle, which is also a requirement for Jabba. We got a Chewbacca/Mercenary pack not too long ago that also had ore requirements. So if you have been doing a lot of Lightspeed bundles, the Jabba pack probably has even more enhanced value for you, because the characters that you are probably missing still are going to be the ones that are in this pack. Now, I will say there's a little bit of discrepancy with the relic levels and how the Galactic Legend is actually unlocked. And what I mean by that is the pack gives you everyone R5, which is fantastic. R5 within itself from 1 to 5 on 7 characters is pretty expensive. And raw dollars, it's about $128 just in signal data alone, not counting anything else. That being said, not all these relic levels match up. I believe Boba Fett is needed at R7 or R8. Greedo's at R6. Gamguard and Mob Enforcer are not exactly at R5. So you might have to do just a little bit of work after buying the pack to kind of push you the rest of the way there. Again, assuming you have a lot of the other requirements, like Jedi Knight Luke, who is already required for him. So is quite a bit going on there, but overall, great value when it comes to a pack. Now, after looking at the obvious first choice being the Jabba pack itself, one of the things that I like to do in these videos is talk about which one I think is probably the most underrated, and that has to go to Tuskens, and it's going to go to Tuskens for a few reasons. Number one, from a pure numbers perspective, it actually has the best overall deal on here just because it's for a low price of $14.99, and it has 2 newer characters that also have a lot of chirotech, and it doesn't skimp out on relic levels either. It actually goes all the way up to Relic 5. But there are some things beyond just the raw numbers that I think make it a really good pack, and that is you actually get a full team just with the pack alone. While a lot of the packs are really good, they have a tendency to be really focused on requirements for something, and while that's great, they sometimes just give you like halves of teams that you then have to go and finish. And while that's fine, like that can be a good way to plan out the rest of your roster building experience, This just gives you the whole team right off the bat, and you don't have to go and necessarily get anyone else to get them to function. One of the other nice things is they're a pretty low Zeta team, being that 3 of them don't even have Zetas at all, even available, which is really nice for Lightspeed bundles, considering they actually create a pretty Zeta deficit for a lot of people, just because you get pretty much everything but the Zetas when you go after them. And then even after that, I think a lot of people, especially in the lower divisions in GAC and TW as well, don't really realize how great of a team Tuskens can be in PvP. And it really, you have to look at what is happening in the early mid game with the rest of the teams. There is a lot of turn meter shenanigans going on, more or less, where we have teams like Phoenix and CLS and Veers and Bounty Hunters that are really big staples being used a lot, both offensively and defensively. And Tuskens just kind of rip them apart, because any single time that the enemy gains turn meter, you end up getting more momentum, and once you get it up to enough stacks, then you start stunning everyone and applying dots, and it just becomes a huge mess for a lot of those turn meter teams that, again, towards the beginning and mid area of the game are really popular. You can add Emperor Palpatine in there as well. So they're, again, a pretty good team, a whole team, a low Zeta team for a pretty good price when compared to overall what you're getting. So if you are really aimed for PvP and GAC and things like that, I believe it's going to be one of the more underrated packs in here. It's also worth mentioning, and this is going to be true for a lot of these, it does have one of the Jabba requirements in it. Aurora, I believe, is required for Jabba. That is going to be true of a lot of these packs, though. We'll see in the Smuggler pack that Outrider being included in there is also required for Jabba, as well as the Jawa pack. I believe it's the no-name Jawa that is also required, so maybe that's not that big of a deal when it comes to Tuskens. The other pack that I want to give a little bit of attention to, because I know it's going to get crapped on, is the Aphra pack. And the reason it's going to get crapped on is because it's $50, which is a really high price for Lightspeed bundles. It's the highest price outside of the weird Ahsoka Rush ones that will be coming here in a couple of weeks. I will say one thing that I think a lot of people aren't going to pay attention to, and you probably should, is we are going to see a very similar, not identical, but a very similar pattern here with Jabba and Aphra that we saw with the Rey and Starkiller bundles. Now, for those of you who don't remember, the Rey and Starkiller bundles came out in the exact same time period. And the reason why that's relevant is because Rey has always been a really fantastic defensive team. While it doesn't work 100% of the time with datacrons and whatnot, one of the best counters out there to Rey is Starkiller. So while a lot of people were getting Rey up pretty much overnight, or they had to wait a month or two to be able to finish out the whole fleet thing, having Starkiller as an immediate tool, even though he was more expensive, just kind of immediately solved that problem for a lot of people. In a similar vein, not quite identical, Aphra has been a really good counter to Jabba throughout the ages. It does take some honing in. It does take a very specific comp using B2 and Darth Vader. There are some other ones that work, but that's kind of the most popular one. It requires good modding. There are certain datacrons that ruin it. But overall, what I'm trying to say is there's going to be a lot more people than we're used to having Jabba running around there. And if you have no solution at all, I realize it kind of sucks to pay double what Jabba costs just to get that team to beat Jabba, but it is a concept. It is an idea that we can look at rather than going and farming something else specifically up that would end up costing you more if you do spend money on the game with things that aren't Lightspeed bundles. So again, overall, not the best value, but something to keep in mind from a practical sense of what you're going to have to go up against. The Smuggler pack is probably one of the... I don't know if I want to label it the loser of this one, but overall, it's just not bringing in that much value. I think Kira has, actually I know she has, a special mission in the in Rote, but I also believe it requires Young Han or L3 or some combination of both, depending on which one it's on. So you're not really getting that completely done. And then I love Vandor, Nest, and Dash. They're great, but they're also... I don't know. It's not the entire complete team like we kind of saw with Tuskens. It is more expensive. It's not as many characters. They are more Zeta / Omicron heavy. So I don't know. It's not bad. It's a Lightspeed bundle. So it's great overall value. But I think it does pale in comparison to the ones that we've seen before. The biggest thing that you might actually want to look into it for is specifically for the fact that it is going to give you Outrider, which, as we mentioned earlier, is also a requirement for Jabba. So you might have to get a combination of all these packs depending on how soon you're wanting to get Jabba. And if I mean, you really shouldn't feel bad about paying, I guess, $20 for Outrider and then getting Vandor, Nest, Kira, and Dash all for pretty much free. That is kind of a nice deal. Now, on to I think the last pack. Oh, I guess we still have Jawas to talk about as well. But being Princess Leia. Now, the Princess Leia pack is $10, so it's pretty cheap. And it is worth noting that if you're going to go after Leia, GL Leia that is, at any given point in time, you're going to have to get Nisa. And Nisa's required at Relic 7, and she's a newer character, so she has 400 Kairos. Paying $10 just to knock that out, especially compared to, like, not to bring them up again, but the Night Trooper and the Enoch packs that cost $65, and I know they're not accelerated, but it is Relic 1. Like, there's so much more going on here in this Princess pack. And I mean, Princess Leia is also required for JML, so it's not a complete loss, but I feel like a lot of people probably already have that done. It's also a little bit overkill in that sense. You will need 2 more Relic levels on Nisa to get her to work for Leia, but at the same time, getting those 4 Kyrotech for free, or not for free, but for $10, and then on top of that, getting enough signal data to bump her up immediately to Relic 5, and then only have to getting her 2 more levels. That is pretty nice. Again, not the winner of this overall pack, but still, just for $10, you don't have to deal with Nisa at all. That does sound kind of nice. And then last, and maybe least as well, is going to be the Jawa pack. And really, I can only see one rational reason, or I guess 2 rational reasons to actually go after this pack. It is $10, so that's really nice. And I know I've actually had conversations with a few people who have made the exact point of, I've never worked on them, I was never going to work on them, so $10 to have them all at Relics sounds fantastic to me. And that's fair. But the other reason why I think they might be worth going after is one of the unfortunate things that a lot of us dealt with in the last week or two was the remembrance that Jawas do end up in Galactic Challenges from time to time, and having them at Relic 3 might not make it super easy, but at least you'll be able to do the vast majority of the tiers, especially if you pretty much didn't have anything going on with Jawas. And the last reason to look at them, and this is, I don't really love getting a whole pack for this, but you do need Jawa at Relic 3 to unlock Jabba. So, I mean, maybe $10, very similar to Nisa, just to get that out of the way immediately. It's an option. So overall, a lot of winners this time around. I think we are definitely ahead with the Jabba and the Tusken pack overall. But honestly, all 4 of the other ones are excusable depending on what you want to do. So hopefully this aided you in trying to figure out which pack is overall best for you or what combination of them are. But several things there to take note of. But as always, thank you guys for watching and stay awesome.